For my drawing, I'm going to be looking at a photo of a cat that I searched online. So here we have a picture of a cat. I like the expression on it, so I'm going to use this as my reference while I'm drawing. Let's zoom in so we can see a little bit closer how I'm going to be doing the face for the cat. So to get started, I'm going to draw the face of my animal about in the middle of the frame that I have chosen. Many of the characteristics of these animals, from cats to dogs to foxes to bears, they're all going to have very similar types of shapes to their eyes, to their noses, to their mouths. So I'm creating like sort of a curved shape on the top of the eye, and then I'm putting this round shape underneath it. That's a very sort of common characteristic to many different types of animals. Now at this point, if I wanted this to turn into a fox, a mouse, a bear, a dog, any number of animals, I would just make the pupil perfectly round, and that would kind of give me the look of almost any type of animal. Now since I want this to be a cat, they tend to have some characteristically slitty pupils. So I'm going to draw my pupil to be a little bit skinnier and pointy from top to bottom. That's going to really help make this look a little bit more cat-like. The next thing I'm going to do is draw a bit of a line down from either side of the corner of the eyes. That is also a common characteristic of many animals, but particularly cats. Now I'm going to draw the nose. The characteristic of the nose of animals is quite similar to one another. So when you're drawing it, think of it as sort of a squished heart shape, where the two sides come out and then you have a point in the middle, but it's just been a little bit squished in the middle. This is a very common nose shape for dogs, cats, many animals. Now from the center of the nose, often in, again, many kinds of animals, is a line, and then from there is where you get the mouth. Whether it's a mouth that is wide open and smiling, or maybe very small and frowny. There's lots of different ways you could do this. You could also add tongues and other funny things if it's meant to be a dog that's wagging its tongue around or whatever it might be. Okay, now that I have the base of my face, I'm going to start adding the shape of the head and adding the ears. Ears for almost all animals tend to be at the top of the head and tend to either be pointy or a little bit floppy. It just depends on if it's a cat, a dog, a fox, a mouse, whatever it might possibly be. Once you have the shape of your animal head pretty well established, you're going to move on to the lower part of their body, which is where we're going to have a little fun. We're going to add some details that make it look like our animal is wearing some clothing, not just having a furry body like a normal animal would. And here I drew sort of a fun fancy outfit for my cat. I gave that a nice necklace with a pendant, I gave it a nice ruffled collar, and a shirt that has some polka dots and textures. I even drew a couple lines here to show the markings of where the cat's arm might be. Now you're going to also scroll to the top, and first to make sure that your animal's not too close to your frame. If you're running into your frame, you can always erase the frame and expand it a little bit. But also decide if you're going to put anything on top of your animal. A hat, a hair bow, a wreath of flowers, earrings, anything you can think of that you might want to add to the top of your animal as well. Okay. Now before I go much further, let's zoom out. Okay, and here we have our finished fancy animal drawing, but we still have a few more things to do. Now to make more of the style of Indi Maverick, I'm going to be adding some ink to my drawing as well. I'm choosing to use a skinny fine line Sharpie, but you can choose to use a thicker one, or if you don't have any Sharpie, you can also use a black pen, a blue pen, maybe a black colored pencil, anything that's going to help define your picture. If you don't have any of those items, you can simply keep it in pen. That's totally fine. But let me go in and sort of add some details through outlining with my Sharpie. Finished outlining everything with Sharpie. Now I did not outline the outside cheek of my cat, but that's because I knew I was going to be creating text there. I wanted to have peek out of the outline, so I did not want to confine it by doing the outline there. Now the next part we're going to do is add some texture to the face of our animal, whatever animal it might be. We're going to be adding texture by using our marker to create small dash marks. You use long ones, small ones, you might use barely any at all. It depends on what sort of texture you're trying to give for your animal and also how dark or light you want your animal to be. Let's zoom in so we can talk about it. So I want to give my animal sort of a fluffy look on the outside, so I'm going to start by doing some longer dash marks along the pencil line, but not directly staying inside of it. I can then erase the pencil line, and now I have a sort of defined cheek space. I'm going to do the same to the other side. When it comes to adding texture, you want to continue using your marker, pen, or whatever you've chosen to use, create the texture. If I want to have hair look like it's going up, I'm going to be using texture in that direction. If I want my animal to feel lighter when I do my dashes, I'm going to make sure that they're separated from each other, not really on top of one another. The further I space out my dashes, the lighter the feel of the fur is going to be. You want to feel a little bit darker, then you're going to make sure that you have your lines get closer together. The closer together the lines are, the darker the value is going to appear to be. There's my textured fur all over my animal. I chose to go darker in certain parts just to emphasize certain features, and I added some whiskers at the very, very end. Now I'm ready to start adding a little bit of color. Let's zoom out again. Now when it comes to adding the color is going to be using whatever materials you feel like using. Color pencils, crayons, markers, watercolor, the sky's the limit. The only thing we're going to be focusing on though with the color is on the accessories and clothing of our animal. So our animal itself is going to stay black and white, but the clothing, any accessories, and perhaps a few minor features like maybe the nose or the eyes is going to be colored in. You want to keep the major part of the face black and white. Let's go. Maverick inspired fancy animal drawing. So when I went in with color, I decided to use color pencil, and I decided to color in the clothing, the accessories, as well as a few major points inside of my animal. I also decided to color my frame as well as my background. You, however, might decide to just color the frame and leave the background white, or maybe create a pattern for the background so it looks like wallpaper. However you decide to finish it is totally fine. But I hope you guys had a lot of fun making this animal with me, and I can't wait to see some of yours.